Hey, Thriving Farmers, I am here with the Johnny's Tool Team, and we are going to talk all about tool development and slow tools and just what it takes to run probably one of the largest tool companies for small farms in, I'd say, the U.S. Would that be accurate to say?
Fairly. I mean, we're getting there. Yeah. I mean, as a tool, not as a tool manufacturer, but as a tool supplier. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, Adam, give us a little bit of your background.
So I've been at Johnny's for almost 12 years now. I was a product manager for 14 years prior to that, and I was in the United States Navy for 6 years as well.
Very cool. And talk to us a little bit about the program of Johnny's Tools.
So I'll go back to 1973 when the company was founded by Rob Johnston, and about a year later he started into breeding, and so that all of that goes way back. And around 1996, Elliot Coleman was started his tenure here as our tools advisor. Okay, and he's been instrumental in developing this tool line, with my predecessors, and I worked very, very, very closely with him over the years. About 2 years later, in '98, Rob Johnson had contacted a local blueberry farmer who was also a machinist, and he was making blueberry rakes for people, and he contacted Ike Hubbard of Hubbard Rake.
Yep.
And he wanted to have him make a chamomile rake. Well, about a year later, he said, "Well, what about Elliot?" Through Elliot's influence and his travels to Europe, and he had seen a product called the Grelinette, and he had asked Ike to come up with some kind of a design for what he was going to call a broad fork, and that's where the broad forks came to the States. And so those are the very beginnings of tools at tool development at Johnny's. We had offered tools and supplies and collectively called them accessories for a long, long time, and those sections are kind of still in the catalog today. Some of those, seed starting, bed preparation, cultivation, harvest, all of those types of activities. We're still offering some of the same products today. Some of the very, very long life cycles. Some don't. So, and it's very, very important to come up with new products, and the market is changing so much that, and that's really what we're here to do is to introduce new products, especially for small scale farming.
Very cool. And Jen, talk to us a little bit about what you do with the tool program.
Yeah, so I'm the product technician for tools and supplies here at Johnny's. I started working with Adam, I guess it was 3 years ago, somewhere around there. I started originally working on the research farm, doing tractor operation on the farm for the vegetable trial side of things. And so then I started working with Adam and Tools, and basically my job as a technician is to run our trialing program. We have a quarter-acre kind of micro farm dedicated specifically to tools and supplies research. And so sometimes that means just testing two different commercially available products because we are a tools reseller. So for instance, I was looking at a couple different stacked long-handled tools this year, and we decided to go with one over the other for various reasons. Usually we're looking at things like versatility in different soil types and what will kind of help out a broad array of growers. From there, sometimes it is having that space to be able to learn more about our tools. So for instance, or supplies. So for instance, the last 2 seasons we've done a soil media trial, just looking at some different seedling growing mixes and trying to compare them. We sell one and we always like to see how it stacks up against others on the market. And that leads to us carrying new products. Like for instance, we brought back Vermont compost this year. You'll see in our catalog because it is a phenomenal product and we want to be able to offer that to growers. And then part of it is tools, videos, and informational materials. So instructional videos, product manuals, as well as some of the trial work. Like for instance, I've done a lot of trial work with the Jang seeder and with comparing rollers to various seat sizes. And that's something that you kind of get, that's sort of what we're known for is because we're a research facility, we have the ability to, for hours and hours and hours, try seed through different rollers. So I think it was probably a year of my life. So, you know, and we're a seed company, so we know that seed sizes are not all the same. You know, when somebody says broccoli, we're like, oh, hang on a second, those are different. But depending on the seeder, for some it doesn't matter. So that's kind of a big part of what I do.
Yeah.
And then recently we have brought on Brad Waugh, and I'll let him introduce himself. But so I work with him a bit too now as we test prototypes and look into developing new tools for the future here at Johnny's.
Yeah. And one thing I wanted to point out too is that the reason you're doing such serious testing is because you have a very serious guarantee on your tools.
We do. Yeah.
And
And
you
that's
don't want
pretty
to sell anything subpar.
Yeah, that's pretty unique to us. And that's what I think that a lot of people don't necessarily understand. Like we hear, you know, we do hear comments about like, well, why are your seeds so expensive?
Yeah.
And part of that is we have a very rigorous trialing process to make sure that the strains that we're choosing are going to be high quality for growers. And we believe in that so much that we put a guarantee on it. And we do the same thing in tools as well, where, you know, we trial things, we want to make sure it's good, we want to make sure it's not going to fall apart. Like Brad and I were doing terrible things with some tools recently to try to test it, so we'd be horrified. But, you know, that's part of what we do here is making sure that growers are going to be successful on the other end. So.
Very cool. And Brad, talk to us about what you do.
Right, so I'm a brand new face here at Johnny's. I have a super long title, being that it is mechanical product design and outsourcing engineer. So that's a mouthful, but essentially my job is to, basically I see it threefold. It's one, to help Johnny's develop some new tools that are really gonna help time and save farmers money, actually in the long run. But also two, it's to kind of re-examine what we have already to see if I can improve them, or if I can make them cheaper, or if they're just things that we need to update because technology has increased, or materials have changed, or even just, you know, there's certain government policies that are affecting how we choose designs now. And then the third is really just to help our vendors, you know, to be a resource to our vendors, to make sure that, you know, if they need some engineering resources, if they need, I don't know, maybe they don't know how to do plastic parts, you know, I can help them do that. So really it's just sort of trying to be a resource to the farmers in a new way.
Very cool. So talk to us about some of the current challenges or products you're working on right now, and maybe making some tweaks too.
Right. So we have been, one of the big things that I've been looking at is our 6-row seeder. So usually it's one of those products that what I hear is that people either love it or they just completely hate it.
It's kept it in the barn somewhere.
Right.
You do not want to know where mine gets used.
Right. So, and a lot of it kind of comes down to, you know, how it moves and the drive system. And there's a lot of people that with their soil, it just doesn't work. And so it's been challenging because, you know, the first kind of answer that we thought it was, well, let's change the drive system. And so that becomes a very complicated kind of foray because it starts to affect what the price is. And so if we get into this, you know, I could essentially update and make this drive system really super nice. But do farmers want to pay $1,000 for a 6-row? And we're not sure that with people's experience, if they're willing to go for that yet. But what we are doing is we're addressing some of the things that we know we can change pretty easily. You know, there's a lot of things that are going to be kind of in this, you know, we're essentially going to try to launch a new version of it pretty soon here. But there's a lot of unseen things, you know, reducing part counts, adjusting kind of tolerances between pieces so that we can get better prices on our parts, that we can reduce our labor in putting it together. But then too, just like simple things about like getting your seed back out of the hoppers, you know, like how that works, like that's kind of a big deal. And it's really, you know, not so
Yeah.
easy in the existing version. So you'll see in the images kind of the direction that we're thinking, and even kind of, something as simple as changing the hopper color so you can see the seed in there. We think will be super helpful.
Yes. Yes.
So
you can
there's
see
things like that that we're looking at that, and looking at it in a way that we can do it without a huge price increase.
Mhm.
That's really the goal, is to get a better tool at a comparable price.
Gotcha. So another thing you're working on is the tilther. Talk to us a little bit about that, because that's been a
Oh yeah.
huge tool for so many farmers.
Oh yeah. I get questions all the time, and Elliot loves to come talk to me about the tilther quite regularly. So this is one of the interesting things, is when you get into tools, how it's made is very important.
Mhm.
When you go to make something, sometimes it seems like that's the best way to do it because, it reflects something about the form or how other things are moving. And so the volumes that we're selling a tilther at right now don't open us up to doing what is basically like a press form kind of operation. It's a very big tool. There's a lot of tonnage behind it. It's very expensive. And that's how you typically do something like a tilther, is you would press it. Now, the way that we're doing it is that someone has to do a series of very tiny bends across that arc and then weld in 2 side pieces.
Mhm.
It just makes it a very labor-intensive operation. So I'm kind of exploring I've jokingly in our team here said that I'm ugling it up a bit so that we can get a better price. And, part of the thing is I'm shopping it overseas, but even that is complicated because if you don't order a certain amount, you still have to defray the cost of shipping it over here and tariffs. And if for some reason your supplier puts in one wrong thing in that shipment, then it stays, in storage that they charge you for several days. And then so now you're out $50,000 just because your shipment was delayed. So there's things that we're looking at where, having somebody close by in the New England area or even stateside, it just helps us out a ton because we don't have to wait 2 days to get a response from China. We don't have to, we can have them airmail it to us in 2 days rather than,
Yeah.
we get it. And then the language barrier, we didn't get what we wanted. And so now we're 2 weeks out trying to get what we actually want. So
Mhm.
there's things that kind of go into our decisions along those lines that, we're kind of exploring as we look to kind of be more competitive in our prices.
Very cool. Yeah, because when you look at the price in the catalog, but then there's always like deals and discounts. People are going on top of that, which can drive that down. So you have to be really careful on where the final price ends up.
Right.
Yeah.
So talk to us about your interaction with other tool companies too, because obviously you do development there, but you also bring in some really cool tools from other people that have been developing in the industry as well.
So we're reinforcing our efforts with a number of different companies, and one of those companies that comes to mind is TerraTech.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've brought in a lot of different new products from them. They are extremely innovative. We're definitely partnered up with them to do that and to develop new stuff. So there's a lot of activity going on there. I think TerraTech has gone and looked at the past. So a lot of the small farming tools kind of went away around the turn of the century, as we all know, right? As agriculture got big and they became obsolete. And now there's a resurgence in the small farmer, and we're looking to the past for solutions. And TerraTech is absolutely doing that in a number of different products, but they're modernizing them.
Mm-hmm.
And they're coming up with new stuff too. And so here at Johnny's, that we're definitely doing that as well. And we've had an awful lot more emphasis put on tools and supplies at Johnny's than there has been in the past years, just because of the growth. We now have a test garden where we do our own thing. We just got a van. It's a big deal.
It's a big deal for us.
Jen came on as product technician, and now Brad as engineer, and we have a new shop that we're going to outfit for prototyping.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. And so It's very exciting. It's, there's a lot of energy going on here. There's just a lot of things happening. So we're excited.
Yeah. So I know like TerraTech is working in all scales. They have the wheel hose. They have even now that new greens harvester. Talk to us a little bit about that. Are you doing any modifications and making that work?
Well, we're working with a farmer in New Hampshire.
Yes, Andre.
Yep, and we're doing some offsite trials with him, and he's providing feedback, and we're trialing it ourselves, and we're providing feedback to the vendor, and there's some modifications that are happening on it for sure. And we, well, I'll let Jen speak to that part of it actually.
Okay.
The trialing.
No worries. Yeah, and so, recently somebody had asked us, well, why aren't you guys trialing the greens harvester specifically? And folks like Andre, he's a greens grower. Like, he's going to pump out so many greens in a way that and in a way that we're just, we're not a greens production farm. And so we would rather put it to the test of somebody who's really going to use it in the same kind of conditions and really work that like pretty well. And we've already been working with him on a larger harvester that TerraTech is offering, and just to kind of look into it, which we personally decided not to carry for various reasons. But with a smaller harvester, it kind of came to us as an idea maybe a year and a half ago. We had some drawings of it, and like Adam said, we have a really great relationship with TerraTech, and so we kind of bounce ideas off of each other, and they're really great about hearing our feedback as we test things. And they've made several adjustments to products based on our recommendations, which has been really amazing.
Yeah.
And so with the greens harvester in particular, it's something that we're really excited about because it's a scale, it's a harvester for a scale that is really tricky to meet right now. And I think it's going to be a pretty affordable price for growers once it's ready. But basically when it came to us, there were some glitches where, we would test it, it would be tested in the field by a few other growers, and Andre tested it before for us as well. We tested in the field, and there was one kind of weak point that was breaking. And so right now, even though there's a lot of excitement around that tool, we don't want to bring it on until we know that all of those issues have been adjusted. And so, we were sticking stakes in the blades and things. So, but we want to make sure that, it's moving in the right direction. And we're really hopeful that that product will be available sometime soon. And so right now we're waiting for some more parts to come from France, and we're kind of looking into because it's going to be powered by a cordless drill. So we need to look into the drill recommendations, the model recommendations, and some of that information. So it's in progress and moving quickly. Yeah.
I want to give another plug for those guys too. So Pierre and Romain and their engineering team, because that piece of equipment is brilliant, especially in the way that it transfers power to the different points that it needs to transfer it. But that also came with some challenges as well. Yeah.
And I've met Romain, right? Romain, yeah. You brought him to Slow Tools one year, right? Okay. Yeah.
Yes. Last year actually he came. It's going to be a great. It's for 30-inch bed system, by the way.
Perfect. Yeah, that's going to make a huge difference for people. I mean, the one thing I would always say is, when can I get the tilther for a 30-inch bed?
Oh, there you go.
I mean, 2 drills.
That was on my plate.
Thanks, Michael. This is how innovation happens.
Yes, exactly. So talk about the DIY movement, because obviously, a lot of people take your tools and then they start modifying them a little bit to fit them a little bit better. But then I'm sure that comes back to you guys, and there's only so much that you guys can do with that, because there's so many ways people are working with them. Talk to us a little bit about that conversation, because I'm sure that comes up.
Yeah, I mean, I personally love the DIY movement because it kind of speaks to what I love to do, to tinker and to try stuff out. I guess, there's kind of like 2 veins that it can take. One, it's that people are going to take our tools and they're going to modify them to their means, which is great. It's awesome, and I think that there are things that I can see us potentially rolling in because that's what people do. Like everyone buys one tool and they add, a guide system on it. We're like, well, we should incorporate that. I think sometimes the trick is that sometimes people have something that's specifically designed to their exact operation, and they feel like everybody should use this. And so the difficult challenge with us is sort of like, well, is this perfectly suited for your farm, or is this perfectly suited for farms in general? But I personally love it. I personally love like getting people's hack together tools. They've welded something up, and sometimes they just don't have kind of maybe the view that we have in the market, or what it's going to take to make something like this. That we get submitted. I don't know. I feel like it's always fun to kind of see new tools and see how people are.
So what if someone does have a great idea? You guys also work with them on tool development. Talk to us a little bit about that process.
Yeah, so we love, one of the things that I feel like I'm here to do is to be an asset to people that want to sell tools, that don't have the avenue to market, because my background is I've done product development for years in a variety of different markets, and it's challenging. Like it's very difficult. There are so many kind of potholes trying to get yourself into the market, and it can be very expensive. But I never want to take that away from people. I never want to take away like, well, I can make this myself. Yes, please do. Like, but for us, if someone feels like they have something that's going to change the game and they want to protect it, we always offer, if they want to sign an NDA with us, which is a non-disclosure agreement, we're totally open to that. We just ask that we get to try whatever they have, that we get to look at how they're intending the operation. And the more that they can give us along those lines, the better we can kind of make a decision. Now, there's some things that you can give me a quick sketch and I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes a little more, like I need a video, I need the actual tool, and I need you to show me how you're using it before I can see the value in it. So the more that you can get us, the better chances you have of really doing it. But, a lot of times it might be a phenomenal tool and it would save a ton of time and maybe effort. But then when we weigh out how it's going to be made, some of those decisions, it's just not a match for us. Not that it's not going to be successful, and we never want to prevent people from, trying to find that avenue. And it might not even be with us. I hate to say that. I would like Johnny's to do everything that we find.
Yeah.
But we really want to be an asset for people kind of trying to hit that market, and people who feel like I have this great tool and I want to try to do it.
And you actually do a lot of that through the Slow Tool Summit, Adam. Talk to us a little bit about that and that whole slow tool movement that you've developed.
Sure. So what Brad is describing is really the idea phase of product development. And that's what Slow Tools is all about. It's about getting a number of people into the same room who are in farming, in manufacturing, maybe in university extension, and coming up with ideas to solve problems for a specific scale of farming, and even a specific aspect of farming, say harvest. We try to drill down at that level. A lot of people we've done sessions where we write down either needs or just product ideas on the board, and then we come back to them and drill into them and try to come up with some ideas, and then people go away from that, and products have come forward out of that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that is usually held down at Stone Barns, where they have an indoor greenhouse where they actually can be doing some hands-on playing with the tools, which has always been so much fun.
Yeah.
Right, absolutely. And it, unfortunately, due to the size and scale, I mean, it is an invitation only kind of thing. But yes.
Yeah. So talk to us a little bit about some of those ideas that have come to you that maybe quite didn't get off the ground.
I tell you what, because I get product submissions, that are resale products that are already, I'm making this product, would you sell it? A lot of that. And then I get product ideas where they want us to develop it and sell it ourselves. And in the first couple of years I was at Johnny's, I got maybe 20 different ways to trellis tomatoes, especially for the home gardener.
Yeah.
A lot of, and that, what, this one costs $40? What, for one plant? I was like, there was some crazy stuff that just didn't make it. And there was a session of time where our focus was really on commercial growers. We weren't going to look at home garden products unless it was going to support the small commercial grower, and if it worked for home gardeners, great. But we've changed that philosophy now, so we're doing both now. We're going to be introducing home garden products as well, but it's also, we've got to run them through our own trialing program and make sure that we feel good about them. And behind them.
Yeah.
Work.
There's also the very simple fact of that it's already out there. I'm judging. There's a small farm tech expo in California coming up, and so there's a competition for new tools. And so one of the tools that was suggested is actually something that's offered by a few different companies. So sometimes just if people haven't done enough research and really searched out, hey, maybe someone's already selling this, and not that that's a killer, but if there's not any value beyond that, they can save themselves a lot of time and effort and heartache if it's just sort of a quick Google search of, here's the basis of my idea.
And kind of to Brad's point as well, we were talking the other day about like what makes a good tool that somebody actually brings to us, and being able to do the quick Google search, as well as having your farmer friends try it out, like, because they might be able to pick those things up with like, oh, well, this is the same as this other thing, or well, what about if you tweak this or change this? So that can be helpful to get feedback and some research beforehand too.
Right.
Yeah. So you're not just repeating the same thing over and over and over. Yeah. And another thing I think too is manufacturer barriers too, is like some tools just aren't, it doesn't pay to, it's going to cost too much to produce that tool than what people would pay.
Yeah. Many of them are going to be cost prohibitive. We look at that, and it has to be a return on investment for the user, for sure. That's where we get into the feasibility stage, and whether not only can we make it at a decent cost, but is it, what is the cost to the end user, and what is their return on investment for it? And is it really, all of this is about making growers more successful, because if they're more successful, we're going to be more successful, and that just keeps working its way forward.
Yeah. And on that note too, of, when we're looking at something, is that product that we're looking at different enough from something else that, like if we have to raise the price, is it now going to be competing with something else? It's a little cheaper, a little less expensive, but it's going to do basically the same thing. Like, where is it worth it for us there, and where can we be focusing our efforts somewhere else? So we're always asking that question.
If it's 90% similar to something else, it's probably not worth bringing it to market.
Right.
So how do you establish that ROI? I mean, obviously you've got a huge network of growers you're working with. The slow tool aspect is nice to bounce people off, but what else makes sense?
Just numbers. Yeah.
Right. So like sometimes there's things that, we're always doing forecasting within Johnny's.
Yeah.
We're always looking at, what we think the market is going to bear for the coming year. And some things, we don't know, but we have things that are close to it. We know that we sell X amount of dollars in co-linear hose each year. So we have a new hoe design. We think that it might be able to capture a certain percentage of that. And then we start to look at, what sort of volumes it would take to match that number. And then we start breaking it down to the each, like, all right, so if we sell it for X amount of dollars each, does that give us enough room after we figure out how it's going to be made that it makes sense? Like a perfect example is that, if a product has a lot of plastic components, then we know that we're going to have probably, I don't know, if it has at least one plastic component, we're probably going to have to at least consider a $20,000 tool to make the plastic component. And even though it's repeated 100,
Yeah.
200 times, it still gets amortized across all those parts. So a lot of times we have to go to sheet metal or a machined operation because we're dealing with volumes that are too low to defray the cost. But then there's some things that make sense, but things like that, or things that have just a ton of parts, they're going to be more expensive because someone has to put them together.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So it's not only the cost of production, it's the cost of assembly, it's the cost of replacement parts, having all those in stock and all that.
Exactly.
Yeah, and there's other things to consider too, Michael. So warehousing, right? There's costs there. And sometimes we get creative, especially with larger products. Vermont Compost is a good example. We're going to be drop shipping that kind of stuff.
Okay.
We can accept a smaller margin on that,
Yeah.
for sure, because we don't have the cost of warehousing.
Yeah, and during the research phase of all of these products, when we're really looking at it, we have the luxury of having this incredible sales team who are working with growers all over the country, and they can kind of give us some feedback on what their growers are looking for and what they think they're willing to spend. And that's obviously a whole other conversation of like knowing when to invest in good tools on your farm, and and knowing when the investment's going to be a good one and when maybe not so much. But we are able to ask these questions to a lot of our other staff members. And so we really do have a team here that's kind of looking at a much broader picture than I think a lot of smaller companies might have.
Yeah, absolutely.
We do that in an informal way all the time, but we also do it formally a couple different times a year in our product advancement team meetings, where we present, this is what we're working on in the coming months. We get their feedback on that. We also have product development meetings where we get a little bit more granular in feedback that we're asking for, and really what they think about feasibility of new products, especially developed products.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They don't go back.
Yeah.
I guess a really simple way of kind of determining those things, what we've talked about in the past, is what I've been asking a lot of farmers is what are the things you hate doing in your operation? Like, what are the things that suck up the most amount of your time, or that are most expensive, or that you just absolutely hate?
Makes you swear the most.
Yes. So if I can reduce the amount of time you spend doing that, or I can reduce the amount of money it costs to do that, that's usually a win.
Yes.
So I think, we can talk about manufacturing and all that stuff, but at the end of the day, if I can, magically prevent you from having to do any weeding the entire year, it probably doesn't matter how much that costs, and then, there's certain things where people will pay ungodly amounts of money because they hate doing a certain job, and they just, as long as they can get rid of it. So those are very simple metrics, things that save money or save time or just save you from swearing at your tools.
I like the swear metric, kind of like the reverse swear jars. Every time you swear, you write down what caused you to swear and put it in a jar, and at the end of the day, you tally those up.
Yeah.
It's a good idea.
There we go. We've just coined this now. Yeah.
So talk to us about some of those off-the-shelf parts which you put into tools that I know a lot of people are looking for. Do you have any places you go that you're like, this has usually a great selection of all these little tiny parts we're always looking for?
Yes. So McMaster-Carr is like one of the best. If you use any sort of CAD software when you're building stuff, you can download the files for the screws, for the washers, for anything. So it's phenomenal because then you can start to figure out, well, do I need a 1/2 inch or do I need 3/8? And you place it in, well, I guess I need 3/8. And they just have everything. Now, at the end of the day, when you go to build this, you probably don't want to use McMaster-Carr. But, stuff like McMaster-Carr or Northern Hydraulics, or even there's this neat little company called Infento, and they make kids' toys. But then it's basically a T-slotted system. It's 80/20.
Okay.
But it's basically like an erector set for making, carts and for making motorized cars. So there's things like that where you can get yourself close and then do the modifications from there. But like Northern Hydraulics, you buy a go-kart from Northern Hydraulics, and then you modify it to the tractor operation that you want to make it. Then you may find that the motor doesn't work, but it gets you close enough rather than having to reinvent the wheel, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool. So one of the things people talk about too is like you've got like the Glazier wheel hoe, you've got the TerraTech wheel hoe, and you got the Planet Junior wheel hoe, and now you have the Haas wheel hoe. Is there one way to use the same tools on all of those? Is there like some sort of like universal bracketing system?
Like an adapter.
Yeah.
Well, we do have some adapters. Well, first of all, the Glazier wheel hoe does take the Planet Junior attachments. It was built to be able to do that, and so those are compatible. And then we do have some adapters for things like our electric wheel hoe that you could put some of those Glazier or
Gotcha.
Planet Junior attachments on it. But so far there hasn't been a lot with maybe, and actually Haas, I believe, also takes the,
Takes all those.
yeah, it takes all the same products. But as of right now, there hasn't been an adapter between that kind of class and the newer TerraTech models. But I feel like TerraTech is making a lot of products that are old Planet Junior attachments, and so they're sort of filling the niche in their own way. The difference would be is they're on much tighter spacing versus those Planet Juniors were a little bit bigger.
And the way that kind of works out is that the Planet Junior stuff, which if they're modeling anything after Planet Junior stuff, a lot of that that farming was really like one row per bed. And so that's where the Glazier, U-bar wheel hoe works best because it needs that space. With the TerraTech, it has limitations as far as plant height is concerned, but it's much more precise and has a whole lot more attachments, and you can stack attachments on it, so you can get more than one pass effectively. So,
And I mean, the whole thing with the size of the plant is if you do a good job when the plant's this big, you never have to touch it again.
Yeah, well, and that's the big difference between that kind of market gardener mentality where you're growing things so close together that they form these canopies and you're only cultivating for a short period of time. It's not like you're going to be cultivating, and you need that much taller bar to be able to do it for longer. So it's just a different method.
I had a personal kind of aha moment at the University of Maine Expo here just a short while ago, and one of the presenters said, your crop has to be bigger than the weeds in order for physical cultivation to work. And there's the big picture, folks. So so we were talking about, well, how do you do that when the plant is extremely young? Well, scale bed preparation. And that's the way to do that. So
you've got to get that stale bed.
But still, even with time weeding, it's still, the crop's going to be a little bit bigger than those emerging weeds.
So let's talk about importing tools, because obviously I think some of us get excited. We go on Alibaba, and I've actually imported some stuff from Alibaba, which came actually really easily, but I know there's also been some hiccups in that. Is that the best way to be pulling in some of these other tools, or should they call Johnny's first and talk to you guys and say, hey, have you imported and tried this yet? And should I just forget about it?
Well, we recently bought something from Alibaba, actually. It was a red mulch that we were testing out.
Red is a very loose term.
Yeah, red's a loose term on this one. It's
more of a salmon.
It's a woven, I was looking for a woven red mulch that we could use in a greenhouse application to grow tomatoes. Okay. And it showed up, as they said, it was an off color. And it very quickly faded and became brittle and frayed, and it was a mess. So it was a failed trial, but that's why we do them. I can't say a whole lot about buying off Alibaba other than that, because that's the only time I've actually done it. But the value here is the trial. The value here is the work we put behind it, and and saying that we know this will work. So, and we stand behind it.
And I think to your question too, Michael, like if folks are looking to import things or if they have questions, if we have looked into something, like we always are looking for suggestions from our growers, and they're welcome to call into us, to email. It's service@johnnyseeds.com. You're welcome to call us and tell us of products that maybe you're interested in, because it's nice to have those eyes and ears out there. And obviously, like, our job is to service our customers, and so we want to make sure that we're offering the products that they want. So if they can tell us what they want, that's always encouraged.
Yeah.
And as far as importing goes, I mean, there's definitely a lot involved for sure. And we do import tools, and it is something that, it's still a learning process, because as Brad said, things are changing all the time. There'll be new rules that will come up, or tariffs, and there's just a lot involved. So it's kind of a complicated process. You might be able to speak more to it.
Sometimes China is just it's a gamble. You might get some really great tools, or you might not. So if you're comfortable with that chance, go for it. I know that for Johnny's, you can trust that we've tested it, that we've decided that it'll hold up, especially in Maine. We grow rocks, so we tend to bash our tools off rocks quite a bit. So it's going to be a solid tool, and it's going to be a fairly tough tool. But, if there's something great and you have money you want to burn, or, Alibaba has some great stuff, but you just don't know what you're getting.
Yeah.
Importing is very, as you might guess, importing is very tricky. We've spoken to the quality aspect of it, and you can absolutely, work with a company in China or wherever else and have a quality product repeatedly. It's dependent upon the company, but there's also economics involved in inbound freight, and that relates to product cost, and ultimately in the price. So as we grow and our volume has increased, we do get those economies of scale. And one of the economies is being able to bring things in a container load. So we're at the cusp of doing that more frequently right now, and that's going to translate to some really great opportunities in the products we're able to bring in, and also costs of the ones we're already bringing.
Bringing that
It
in.
can be very expensive to bring in one pallet of something from France, let's say. And so bringing in those containers can be helpful.
Bringing in 20 pallets is going to save you. So let's talk a little bit about what you don't focus on, because obviously, like, there's a lot of tools people are asking for, but there's economies of scale too. So, like, I know some people are looking for like larger scale greens washing equipment, but I noticed you guys haven't got into that because you're only going to sell maybe a dozen or 2 dozen a year, and that just is not where you guys are focused.
So we have approached companies like Electrolux that makes the greens machine, and to no avail. But we've tried to go there, but like you mentioned, it does reduce the number of really available customers for a certain product, right? In tools and supplies, one of the things that we do is we are focused on supporting the other lines within the company. So we're focused on supporting vegetable production, flower production, herbs, cover crop, planting. And so that's part of the selection process as well.
Yeah, because I mean, one of the questions someone kicked out to me was like, hey, are you going to start carrying a hemp bucking machine? And I'm like, well, it's probably not the direction Johnny's is going, because they don't have hemp seed in their catalog yet, and it's just a very, very specialized tool.
Yeah, and that's exactly why, because we haven't gone down that road.
Yeah. So let's talk about some new products you guys are excited about, because I know you guys are bringing in stuff constantly, and I'm sure, I mean, like everyone else, I'm always, waiting for that November catalog to show up in the mail. So let's talk about some fun stuff you guys got coming up.
Okay, yeah, I can start. So I'm personally excited about a couple of our new cultivation tools. The two in particular are actually from TerraTech. One is called the Spring Hoe. It's one of the stack tools that we were looking at, and it kind of has 2 sweeps and then some torsion weeders, so you get your in row and between row cultivation in one pass. I did some demos with it out west and in Maine, and we've had some really great feedback on it. I was really happy with it. And the reason we kind of chose that one is for a couple of reasons. First of all, one thing that we do really like about TerraTech is I feel like their tools are very versatile. I had the opportunity to go over and see TerraTech's operation this summer in France, and they have some of the heaviest clay soil I think I've ever seen. I had mud in my boots for weeks after the fact, and so they hold up to really hard conditions, and yet I use them in sandy soil and they're still just as effective.
Yeah.
And so we were comparing them to some products from Japan, which a lot of times some of the torsion weeders from Japan, they're built for sandy soils, and that would go also with something like paper pot transplanters. Sometimes, like some companies are able to sort of span that gap of soil types, and others don't do it quite as well. And so, so that was one reason that we brought that in. So I'm really excited. I think it's going to be a pretty affordable tool for home gardeners as well as commercial growers, and really effective. So that's a spring hoe, and then we do have a tine harrow.
Okay.
We brought in the Flex Tine Weeder from Two Bad Cats last year, which is a tool that I love. And it's really wonderful, you know, for kind of moving around even mature plants, and it does a great job of getting those thread stage and cotyledon stage weeds. The difference with this tine harrow, I think it complements that line well, because this one is for a little bit heavier soils. It's a little bit more of an aggressive angle, and so depending on your soil type and your needs, I feel like we have something for everyone. So I'm really excited about those. And actually, I will say really quick too, because I forgot to mention it before. Right now, we're working a bit with some researchers up at UMaine, and they've been doing all this research on cultivation tools and organic gardens. And so they've actually been testing some of these tools in this 4-year research project, which has been pretty amazing. And so we've had some really good feedback on that. So it's been great to work with them and to be able to see that research and try to bring more of that into our product description so that customers know what they're getting before buying it.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, the tine weeder, I mean, I still am just in love with the Groundskeeper 2 rake, the little 15-inch. I use that about day 10, and I usually don't have to do much weeding after that.
It's true. And that's the nice thing. Like, that's the one we started with. Like, it's known as the Groundskeeper. We call it the tine weeding rake.
Yeah.
And it was a product that was originally made for something else, cleaning debris around your farm and in your garden. And then it was adapted to be a cultivation tool. And it's really amazing for that. And it's inexpensive. And so it's a great one to have around the farm. I feel like anybody can benefit from it. For folks who are looking to cultivate over a longer period of time, having that more professional option as well. You know, now we have two that has two lines of tines. It just doesn't do the plowing as much, and it's I feel like it's a little bit more versatile with your crop types too. So it's nice to have all three. I feel like they
oh yeah, and it's not going to pull as much trash. There's so many other advantages. Yeah, as you scale up, that's going to make a huge difference.
Yeah, and actually I will say, just for your growers who are listening in, one thing that we have found that tine weeding rake, the Groundskeeper, does really well is once you've harvested your greens beds, cleaning up all of that junk on the end so that your next round comes up well. And that's where something that was designed to clean debris is fantastic. So any greens grower should have one.
yeah, automating that would actually be cool as well. I'm just thinking through some scenarios in my head. I might have a few product ideas for you.
All right.
All right. So Adam, what do you got? I know you've got some things you're excited about.
Yep. So we launched a product. We're launching a product in our new catalog called Black Weed Fabric. Okay. And so this, not a lot of farms, but I know that at our own research farm, we used to plant a lot of stuff on plastic mulch and then put down straw in the footpath. So this would take the place of that straw at a much lower cost. It's reusable. It's basically Agribon 50 that's black. Okay. And you can lay it down and put it in place with fabric staples or sandbags, whichever you choose. I want to credit Howard Prusak from High Meadows Farm. He is the one who I first saw using it. And he uses it extensively. And, it works.
He's a legend.
Well. It's fantastic actually, because like woven fabric, woven black fabric, a lot of times if you get soil on top and weeds root through that, it's extremely hard to get rid of. In this case, they don't seem to root through it at all. So you can go in and do your in-row weeding or whatever, and almost just throw your stuff right on top of it, and it just will sit there and desiccate and die and not regrow. And you can get soil on top of it, and the weeds can't grow through it. And it's reusable. You can use it up to 3 years, as far as I know.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
Have you seen Roxbury? Because Roxbury does that on acreage, and they have this massive system for retracting it, putting on big reels and everything. So it works. It's a dream.
Yeah, it's much lighter than the woven stuff. It's just easier to work with.
And cheaper.
Yeah.
Very cheap. Cool.
We're offering home garden sizes as well.
Oh, nice.
As 820-foot rolls.
Yeah. Okay, so home gardener size, is that something where you guys are cutting in house, or are you having the company make those for you?
It's coming in from a different company.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Very cool. So then, Brad, do you have anything?
Oh, I have all kinds of stuff. I don't know how much I can talk about, but I've got probably a half dozen projects that I'm working on right now. We've talked about the 6-row, obviously. And you guys will get to see some images of that, which I'm sharing with you guys. We also won a grant for some soil blocking. So we've been kind of testing out some soil blocking, trying to get larger tools for kind of people can scale up. And there's probably, a few dozen more that are probably in the works of some varying degree. But I love emails. I love working on new stuff, and I'm trying to push stuff out as fast as I can. But sometimes we just have to test and take things slow.
Yeah, very cool. And Jen, you also were talking about this new flower pot system or flower. Talk to us about that, because that is a huge problem that's solving.
Yeah, I feel like I'm weirdly excited about these. And so around Johnny's, for folks who haven't seen them, they're like, so they're just buckets. I'm like, they're a system. Like, they're really weird about it. But it's called the Percona system. And basically it's a poly container. And there are these attractive containers that have good airflow. They can be used as a display at your farmer's market booth. So the idea is you take them into the field, you can harvest right into them. They're durable. Bring it to your flower studio, make your bouquets, put them inside. And then there's a cardboard collar right now. And we're looking into some other options other than cardboard, but this is a good, inexpensive option for now. You wrap the cardboard collar around, put your blooms in place. There's a lid that goes on top, and then you can stack these containers. And so if you have a little bit of water in there, your flowers are staying fresh all the way from the field to your markets. And the idea with the slow flower movement, and with that becoming really big, like growers being able to show their level of professionalism and say, look, these are my locally grown flowers. They're going to last longer in the vase than your grocery store flowers that often come from places like the Netherlands and then are shipped to grocery stores.
Yeah.
And so it kind of puts small scale growers at an advantage where they're offering a really high quality product. And so we're really excited about those.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll segue too into another product that we have for flower growers this year is part of some of that Jang trialing work that we've done. Something that came out of that was testing a lot of flower varieties, and one flower in particular for cut flower growers that works really well with the Jang cedar the Jang cedar sunflowers. And we found that from doing those trials, most of the sunflower varieties we carry, which is about 50 at this point in time, use one of 3 rollers. And so we are offering a sunflower starter pack for the Jang cedar. And so I definitely encourage new flower growers to really look into that, because vegetable growers, we all know about the Jang cedar. It's old hat at this point. Like, it's still an incredible cedar. And actually, Michael, I was listening to your podcast recently, and you were speaking about the Jang, and you guys were talking about how influential that's been for a lot of growers. And but I think that flower growers don't have that same information that vegetable growers do. And so trying to kind of get the word out there for them of like, hey, there's some options that are very exact, and as much as I love the Earthway as like a good starter cedar, this is just going to get you sort of where you need to be a little bit better. So I'll kind of put a plug in for that, and we'll have some more Jang work coming down the pipeline soon too. So.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that would be really nice is be able to adjust the Jang for a little bit of more no-till. I know they've got the disc openers, which were fabulous, but maybe even beefing those up a little bit would be maybe a combination disc plus ripper, like yeah, maybe putting just the discs in front of the regular shoe might actually even be better for that.
Yeah, and actually that's something that I brought up this week to these guys after attending a cover cropping conference and talking a lot about how to incorporate small scale tools into some of these other systems like a no-till system,
Yeah.
because I think that we probably already carry a lot of tools for that with, like you're saying, adapting them a little bit. And
Yeah.
like, so for instance, I've started using the Jang Cedar at the JP5, so the 5 rows. We're going to offer that in our catalog this year. We haven't been, we were offering it with 3 hoppers. Now we'll offer it with 5 or 4 and 5 in the catalog. But I've been using the JV5 as basically a miniature seed drill for my cover cropping right on the 30-inch bed system.
Yeah.
So, and you can incorporate that into other techniques like tarping for no-till growing. And so I think that that's kind of where some of our research is going now, to really look into how to come up with those recommendations for growers.
Yeah, we're doing a lot of work now with a lot of Midwest and, like, I would say, I guess, what would you call Oklahoma? Further west?
Yeah.
Western.
Yeah.
So they deal with these massive winds. And so I was on a farm less than a month ago in Nebraska where I could sit there and watch the soil erode from the wind all winter long. So it's so incredibly important for them to be able to get a cover crop on, or at least tarping their beds so they don't just lose all their soil. So that's where the weed fabric is going to work out, Adam, to help them with that. The Jang, they can see the cover crop easily for them. Yeah, it's just it's a completely different world out there. And if you farm in the Northeast where you just don't have those things, it just doesn't start in your mind.
Yeah, well, and actually a lot of my growing was in southern Utah, which
Okay.
is other conditions, and 50-mile-per-hour winds. As soon as you put those tomatoes in the ground, wind season happens. So everyone's just sort of hanging on for dear life. So, yeah.
Do you guys offer any windbreak products?
No.
No, we sure don't. No.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that would be something too, which I think could be really helpful for these farmers. I mean, obviously it's work to put those up, and probably like they would probably want to buy the metal stakes and stuff locally, but like the fabric and stuff could be really good.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Yep.
All right. Any final thoughts before we go? This has been fabulous.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, I have a final thought. I'm going to tell you a story first, and I'll get into it. Okay. The other day we're out in a warehouse, and we're trying to come up with boxes for the Perconas. Okay. Boxes that fit them, and we're trying to figure out what an average order size is, because we don't have an average order size yet, because they're just starting to sell. And we're saying, okay, well, 5 of this, 5 of that, 5 of this, and then we're kind of figuring out, some custom boxes to make it, so we can sell them. And as we're doing that, the pickers are coming in, they're picking orders out of that whole big shelf rack of Perconas that we have out there. And as a product manager in my former job in California, that was my job satisfaction, was finding something, saying, yeah, I think this will sell, going through all the motions of getting it into the catalog, and getting those first few orders and saying, yep, okay, right. And that was, really reassuring for me and kept me going. At Johnny's, there is that aspect, and once in a while, just like we did the other day, you get that. But in this job, it's really become about helping the grower. And when we see products out on someone's farm that we've had a hand in, or we brought to market, and we know that we've somehow affected that is serious job satisfaction. That keeps me going here at Johnny's every day. I know that we all feel strongly about growers being successful. As I said before, that's what makes us successful. I also want to put in a plug for our research assistant, Craig Flood. We neglected to mention him. He's not here today, but we could not take care of the test garden without him, and a lot of the other things that we need to for our team. So he's the fourth member of the tool.
Very cool. Very cool. Awesome. Yeah. That job satisfaction aspect right there. Just the other day in one of our groups, someone posted that they had just hit their revenue goal for 2019. And they said, I still have 6 weeks to go.
Yeah.
So and we were all like, yes. So, yes.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, that's always, you're right. That's always good to see, you know, the tool on the farm being used, that it's actually making a difference. You know, it's that aspect of you buy something from Johnny's and you know it's going to work.
Yeah.
And so you can, even though, yes, it is maybe a little bit more expensive than the tool that you might buy from the other company, but you know it's going to work. You can put it into production and your system's just going to be so much better for it. So.
Yeah, and I think that something that a lot of growers don't realize is we are an employee-owned company 100%. And so we all really have investment in this company, and to see it do well and to see our customers do well. And it's wonderful to be able to go to conferences and have people see your logo and like, oh, Johnny's, and then just rattle off all of the varieties that they love and could not live without. And it's pretty incredible to be a part of.
Yeah, yeah. There's definitely some varieties that I can't live without.
Yeah.
So, yeah, don't drop that Bolero carrot anytime soon. So
that one might not be up to us. I don't know of it happening, but we love it too.
I forget who I mentioned this to, but the year you guys dropped that, well, it was supposedly going away. We bought 1 million seeds.
I know.
We just stuck that in the freezer, and for the next 3 years, because we were using about 1/3 of a million seeds a year, we just kept using those seeds up, and they stayed great germ, and then we were able to keep continuing to buy it. But yeah, I mean that variety made us so much money.
Yeah, and I promise you that was not a ploy on our part. It was definitely, you know, we get certain, because we don't produce that variety, and so we're a reseller for it. And so when you get word that something's going away, we try to gear our customers up for it and try to really like scrounge around to look for good substitutions that will be the closest possible. I know like when Nelson went away, it was bad. So, and Bolero is like a favorite of mine and the others. So yeah.
Which is interesting though, because we just had another conversation in one of our groups, and everyone was telling me all these new varieties that they're liking instead of Bolero. And I was like, oh, maybe I need to be a little bit more open-minded. So
yeah,
maybe some tests coming for 2020.
right. Well, and that's a good like plug for being able to test varieties on your own farm for years, even if you have your favorite. Good to have some other backups just in case.
Yeah, we played with Adelaide this year. Again, this is not a seed conversation, but the germ wasn't great. The carrots were super cute and they were super tasty, and the kids loved them. But yeah, it wasn't a great, not a lot of strong top two, which meant they didn't really cover out for weed control fast. So
yeah. Well, and actually, if you want to know this will be my last thing, but a fun thing about Bolero that they're finding at UMaine in some of this research is they're looking at the anchoring force of certain varieties, and they're finding that Bolero has a really strong anchoring force, which means it's more resistant to cultivation. So that does tie into
fascinating.
Yeah. So soon we talk about it a lot with our plant breeder here at Johnny's of like, we need to breed cultivation resistant carrots. Cultivation ready.
Yes, and that's actually something that no one thinks about until you invest yourself and entrench yourself and into the whole world of this whole thing.
Yeah, and that's where us being able to have this great team of salesmen and growers and tools people and and breeders all in the same building is pretty incredible. So we're really lucky.
Very cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming today. Really appreciate that fascinating conversation. You've got my wheels turning. I'm sure you have our listeners' wheels turning as well. And I'm sure you're going to get a pile of tool ideas and requests.
Hope so.
Get ready.
And I definitely have a few ideas I am going to pitch you guys here in the next couple months. Hopefully, maybe I can make the one of these trips to Maine one of these days can happen. So.
Yeah.
All right, Michael. Thanks very much. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
We'll see you. Bye.
Bye.